Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Arjunulambita Bhujo Kanakabharatu Sankirtanaye Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijabaro Yuga Dharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gorodai Pushpavanto Chitra Sando Tumuno Vande Ham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charanasako Sukhado Paramanando Sundaro Subalapriyo Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Radha Namostute Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Harikire Pranamami Harikire Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shri Krishna Janmāṣṭamī Mahamotsavatiti ki jai. All Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All Premanand. Hari-ho. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So, today's program has commenced, and we'll continue until the midnight Arti and Kirtan, followed by Mahamashravanam. And for those of you who have arrived more recently, this morning we began, of course, early, and later in the morning at 10 we had some discussion for a couple of hours, far-ranging field of topics involving determination, determinism, destiny, free will, the limits of reason, the nature of Leela in relation to the nature of the world, and so forth. And we get good questions, so that's 50% of the whole setting. So tonight, of course, we're going to shift a little more directly into some discussion that is centered around the event, the appearance, the birth of Krishna, birth of the unborn. Murli, are you listening? I forgot my book. I wanted to speak a little bit tonight to begin from Bhagavad Gita. What does Bhagavad Gita have to do with the birth of Krishna? But we'll have to look at. And in this regard, I wanted to start the discussions tonight with some tattva, or some underlying knowledge that out of which the Leela, the divine play of Krishna's birth and activities arise. That's an important foundation, the ground of the stage, if you will, on which the drama of the Leela is performed, has to be erected in our hearts. And then we can say, coming to a theater near you soon. So that is a certain kind of knowledge about the nature of Krishna, bhakti, and so forth. In fact, without that in place, it's difficult to progress. Simply by chanting, it could be said that by chanting we'll become disposed towards such and gather then a firm footing, standing on which to continue, in spite of the winds of the world, to pursue our life as a sadhaka, a practitioner. And the winds are and strong. So a good dose of sadhusanga association, and that association should be such that knowledge is shared, transmitted knowledge. Of course, an example as well in the invisible feeling the speaker conveyed to the audience creates the samskaras, bhakti samskaras, which will make in due course our bhakti, our practice, kind of second nature, with a favorable wind behind it, and refine it in terms of its particulars, the expressions of bhakti within the one philosophical overriding parameter, the one, the Veda, the Audārya, the non-difference, one philosophy that is such that it gives rise to varieties of expression, both in the realm of service in this world and in the inner meditative world, the real world, you like to say. So, let's turn to Bhagavad Gita and the fourth chapter. You're all familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, most of us, maybe Arthur, I'm not sure. Bhagavad Gita, text out of the sacred text of the Hindus, that is a very kind of distilled form of really of all the sacred texts. It gives a kind of spiritual intelligence to us and direction how to proceed. So, in the first 6 chapters of the Gita, the subject, interestingly enough, is you or us, which is a pretty good way to start out. If you are reading a book and you find it's all about you, then it's pretty attractive. And it says things about us that are very, very becoming, very amazing, in fact. And the second 6 chapters, then there's a turn. There's 18 altogether, so we have 3 sections of 6. After speaking about us, then speaker speaks about himself. There's a Upanishadic dictum, Tattvamasi, you may be familiar with it, Tattvamasi. There's the most, perhaps from a, I guess, etymological point of view, the best translation is, you are his, Tattvamasi. So, Tvam means you, Tat means his. Could mean that, but his makes more sense. How can you be that? How can you be that? But you could be his. That makes sense. And the dictums should make some sense. So, having spoken about us, the speaker speaks about himself. And the theology of the Gita, then. And in the last 6 chapters is the metaphysics of the Gita. Important section, to say the least. But this middle section, the theology, appears a little early in a short, brief way as an aside in the early 6 chapters, which is peculiar about them because they are principally about us. Of course, when I say us, I mean what we are. What we are is, as I often say, we are not this or that, niti, niti. This, I'm not American, I'm not Indian, I'm a man, I'm not a woman. This, that, whatever it is a very small idea. However big it may seem in our minds, it's as small as our minds are, which are pretty small, even if they're big. Even the big mind amongst us is still a small thing. So, I'm not this or that. I might think I'm American, I might think I'm a man, a woman, I might think I'm a daughter, and later I might think I'm a mother. I might be right in one sense in all of those conclusions, but they're all passing, right? With time. They're not enduring. They're not real in that sense. We can't rely on them. They'll change, they'll transform before our eyes. So one thing that is continuous in the identification of with this or that of the world is what? If I say, I am this or I am that, I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm man, I'm woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Catholic, I'm Hindu. Something's changing and something's remaining the same. This and that are changing, what's remaining the same? You can say, I am. That has changed. I am this, I am that. This and the that are changing. The I am is remaining. This is what we know. This is the only thing we know by experience. The association we know that we exist. This is what life's about in one sense. What's out there? Who's looking at it? Who's observing it? Who's thinking about it? Who's making matter matter? Where does the meaning and the value come from? It derives from the subjective inner world, which is a world often dismissed as not being real, imaginary, unreliable, whereas the physical world, we can measure to some extent and harness to some extent, is thought to be the real world. But it really doesn't matter. We can't do any of the measurements and observations without that subjective self. I. You know what the most popular word in the English language is? You can say besides Govinda who's nodding his head. What is the most used word in the English language? What's the most used word in the Spanish language?
Yo.
Anybody speak any other languages here? So the point is, I, in all languages, is the most used word, and it's the least understood. What is I? So, a unit of value, a unit of purpose and meaning that deposits meaning on matter. This morning we were talking a little about it. A stone is an idea, it's a thought. Things are thoughts. There are the basic ingredients of things, but when they become things, particulars, that means they're thoughts. We thought that certain things combined in a certain way are a house, a car, a church, as may be the case. So things are thoughts. So we move from the objective world to the subjective world, and if we can navigate the course there, there's something very rich to be mined in the subjective world, and it begins with your own self, right? So again, this is very much the subject of the first 6 chapters of the Gita, what I am, which is different than what I think I am, which is a very small-minded thing in comparison. In this world, the unfortunate reality is that one living being is food for another. One person's feast is another person's funeral. So, not a pretty picture. The picture that the Gita is presenting is very different, much more beautiful. And it speaks in a kind of, indirect way about the self. Why I say indirect? Because the self's not like anything in the world. There's nothing to compare it to. It's a unit of experiential reality, and matter is experienced. To think that experience arises out of non-experience is not a very well thought out idea. It's a popular idea, but it's not very well thought out. So, the wonder of the self, what can you say about it? Krishna said a fair amount, but a lot of it's indirect to actually describe consciousness. Again, it transcends words and thought. It is said that there are the best things in life are not things. Neither are they thoughts about things, which is what most of our thoughts are about. The Gita seeks to redirect our thoughts. From the perspective of Vedanta, there's a physical matter and there's a psychic matter. This psychic matter is a tool that can be used to turn the whole thing around from an experience of hunting and being hunted. I said one living being is food for another, which is not a very pretty place. Turn it around from a world of taking, exploiting, out of a sense of need, having identified with something that doesn't endure. All these thises and that's that we identify with are changing, so to hang on to them is a struggle. Of course, we won't be able to, but without knowing otherwise, we try, and we're a little mean. It's just unavoidable given the circumstances. So we are feeling somewhat empty, so we try to add on. But we're adding on something that's of a different nature than ourselves. It's not a good fit. So we try, and material nature seems to present opportunities, facilities that might, if we add them to our life, we think make it fulfilled. But this is a perpetual carrot. It's a perpetual appetizer, and no square meal ever comes, the result of which is a good case of ongoing indigestion. So if we can, how to convert this, to change the situation, in other words, how to turn ourselves from being a taker into being a lover, a giver. Love is about giving. This is what the yoga of the Gita is about. So having talked a little bit about the self as much as one can, speak about that, which is difficult to define because there's nothing to compare it to, and we define things by comparing them to other things. But having asserted that there is such an experiential reality, it's hard to imagine that there's not, but that's all we really know, as I've said. In our tradition, it's not whether you believe you have a soul. You can't ask, do you believe that you have consciousness? I mean, it's a silly question. You can't ask the question without consciousness. So it's not a question of believing in the Gita, in the soul. It's a question of defining, if you will, something we're all very familiar with, consciousness. Something we cannot escape. I mean, it's the bottom of everything. It is said that you can dismiss that which doesn't endure as being not real. That's why we, for example, dismiss oftentimes our dreams, because things come and they go, and okay, life goes on. Forget about the dreams. They don't endure. So as much as the thing doesn't endure, well, it doesn't have any, it's not real in an enduring sense. But consciousness is that thing which cannot be dismissed, because the very act of dismissal is rooted in consciousness itself. So it's the bottom of everything. And we're of that nature. And it's very different in nature from our material sense of self. So this is good news of the Gita. And as I said, having emphasized this point, Krishna will go on in the 6th chapter, then having talked about ourselves in a beautiful way, in a very becoming way, in a very complimentary way, very flattering way. He'll begin to talk about himself. But here, relative to our gathering, Audārya Janmāṣṭamī, in the 4th chapter, prior to the middle 6 chapters, he segues slightly into a little bit of theology. And here, the first place indeed bhakti is mentioned directly. When speaking about the self earlier on, having done so, and enlivened, so to speak, Arjuna at a prospect of more to life than what meets the eye and mind, but not being able to capture it and arrest it in the fist of one's intellect and understand it, Krishna then begins to speak about yoga, a different way of knowing, kind of an inverse way of knowing. We're accustomed to knowing by way of gathering information through our senses and then filing it and pulling it out to support our sense of self, promote ourself, and so forth. yoga is about essentially a different kind of knowledge that, while ordinary knowledge we can put on our agenda, we find that this knowledge mandates that we become part of its agenda. That's very, very different. There's a big switch here. I look at the world, we look at the world as if we are the subject, matter is the object. It's true to some sense, to some extent, that's a fact. But as Krishna begins to introduce himself here, a little theology and the idea of bhakti, he's introducing a super self, in relation to which we look more like matter. We look more like an object, subject to his whim, if you will, as matter appears to be subject to ours. So we're consciousness, but we're not the whole picture. We're a spark. There's the fire, the source. There's the smoke. There's the heat and the light. So they seem very different, fire and smoke, but they go together, don't they? Smoke is part of fire. In this analogy, if you will, smoke means the influence of matter over us. How can matter have an influence over us? When we said we give meaning to matter, we give value to matter. It's something like, I've given an example before, if you turn on the television, well, and it has a life, but it could take over your life. It's also possible, and that's a problem. So this is the problem we find ourselves in. Yes, we're consciousness, we're superior to matter and constitution, but we're small. And so a spark can get caught in the smoke, in its capacity to illumine, limited as it is anyway, becomes that much more obscured. In the fire, there's smoke. Smoke is entirely different from fire. Fire illumines, smoke obscures. But smoke is an aspect, potency of the fire. In this analogy, again, smoke is the obscuring influence of matter. We call it Maya. Maya. It means many things. One of the things is to measure. We are constantly trying to measure. That means to get a control things. Okay, things are in control now. It's okay. Something like that. This is good try, but you're not in control. Right? So to think that one can measure it, bring it within the fist of the grasp of oneself and control it, that is an illusion. That is Maya. Has other effects as well. So the smoke obscures the spark, and then there's the fire, and there's heat and light. So we have a fire, it generates heat, light, smoke, sparks and smoke. Here we have the whole Gaudiya tattva, in a sense. We have Maya, Shakti, material nature. We have the spark, the jiva, and we have heat and light of the fire. Heat and light means illumination, knowledge, knowing, samvit. And heat means feeling, ladini, love, bliss. In this analogy, the heat and the light are the Swarup Shakti. We have Swarup Shakti, Jiva Shakti, Maya Shakti. They're one with the fire, in the analogy we're giving, and different at the same time. The smoke is more different. The heat and light are more like the fire. This heat and light is, in our world of Vedanta, the essence of the heat and light of the fire that is God is bhakti. Bhakti is constituted of this. It illumines, it gives feeling, potential for feeling. But I should say potential for feeling lies within us. potential. Consciousness touches subtle matter, and then life is emotional. That is our life, our emotional life, because consciousness touches subtle matter. Subtle matter can reflect consciousness, and a semblance of the emotional life and potential of consciousness itself manifests in the world. So that consciousness has potential for emotional life, but in order to have emotional life, we have to have an environment, and we have to have somebody to love. You just need someone to love. That's all. You need a significant consciousness other to realize the fullness of your potential as a unit of Ananda, of Sat, enduring existence, of Chit, being cognizant rather than inert, and with the capacity to love. You can love yourself, you're lovable. I can guarantee you that. The self is the object of love in the world. We don't love, the Upanishads say, our mother. We don't love the father. We don't love this or that. We love ourselves. What does it mean? The little word my father, my mother, my daughter, speaks about how we, the self, project ourselves into others and other things, and then they have meaning for us. It's my car, so if something happens to it, it's a problem. If I hear that your car got a flat tire, it's not a big deal, unless I really identify with you. You understand? So what really is lovable is the self. The object of love in the world is the self. How can you love matter? You can't reciprocate. Love is created on a scale of reciprocal dealings. Consciousness can reciprocate, but has to have someone to reciprocate with. So, in the consciousness world, in the subjective world, super-subjective world, there's a significant other. He's the fire. He's known by his nature to heat and light. So having anyway talked about the self, talked about yoga as a means of knowing that which cannot be known by words and thoughts, that which is beyond thought, beyond word. It doesn't mean we can't talk about it or think about it, but we can't say enough about it. We cannot capture it in words and thoughts. So we need a different way of knowing, a kind of inverse way of knowing. And this is yoga. It's a trans-rational exercise, an exercise that picks up where reason leaves off and takes us to a place where reason unto itself cannot. I think that's reasonable. It's reasonable to pursue that. Krishna has spoken about the self with good reasoning as to its existence, what it is, what can he say about it? It's not this and it's not that, he says. It can't be burned, it can't be withered by the wind, it can't be drowned. And he ultimately concludes saying, Ascharjava, it's amazing. That's what it is. It's amazing. You are amazing. Is what it says. But in order for you to be all that you can be, he has to be in the picture too. Because you just need someone to love. It's an old song. I've been around a while. So here he begins the fourth chapter by glorifying the yoga that he's talked about. Although he's just directly talked about the yoga of karma, selfless action, and talked about how it's synonymous with knowing. It's kind of knowing in motion, knowing in process. Knowing, that means knowing the self. That will result ultimately, that knowing, in ceasing from action and contemplative life. You have karma as movement and jnana as stillness. What's the problem with this? People often want to move from karma to jnana, from movement in relation to things that don't endure, to the knowledge that I endure, and just sit tight. Instead of chasing after things that don't endure. But there's a problem here. We move in the world in relation to things that don't endure, and we're attached to them, This is ignorance, and the result is suffering. If we stop taking and moving in relation to things that don't endure, we may come to know the self, we may come to Atmaram. We may feel satisfied that we don't have to move, but movement is good, actually. If you're really full, then you do move. Similar reason that if we move out of a sense of emptiness, and it's true. We feel we lack something, so we move. We owe. That's another way of looking at it. It's off to work we go. We've taken, now we owe, so we're in an obligatory sense, we're moving. Gosh, and we take a rest. So the debate is come to knowledge. No, sit. If you're full, why move? But the Gaudiya reason and the Gita reasons as well. No, there's another kind of move, being derived from having. We have nothing. Only an appearance of having. The sense of I derived from that having is just false as the ownership that we laid claim to. When in fact with these, nothing belongs to us. So to give up the taking, that's part of loving, not taking. Is there any more to it than that? Is there any more to loving than not taking? Much more. Right? What is the giving? Who will you give to? There has to be another. Again, to come to this. In relation to whom we, the part, can really understand our fullness in every sense of the term. You may understand that I am not matter. You have not understood what you are. We are, the Jiva, the Atma, cannot be defined without understanding its potential. It has a certain potential that in a certain environment it will be activated and realized. In the material environment it's realized to some extent, but it comes out all wrong because we've identified with matter. We have a personhood, desires and so forth, and life that ends. It doesn't end happily ever after. It's unfortunate. But we wanted to let all the movies, we wanted, of course, not even the postmodern movies, and tell it more like it is. What is it? It's a problem. It's I didn't get the point, or there's too many. That's material life. It's an accurate portrayal. But the feel-good movies. This is what the feel-good movies. The Gita is saying, come this way. It's not just a movie. You can feel good forever. You can know yourself, and knowing yourself means knowing your potential. What is our potential? The potential to be a person. And all that means. In fact, it's good reason not to pursue meditation. If meditation is advocated in such a way as to say, look, you're not a man, you're not a woman, you're an Atma, you're a pulsating unit of consciousness, a witness, and you're blissful unto yourself, and love is an illusion only. You have good reason to say, well, it may sound good, but I'm not interested. But the love you're pursuing is only temporary. Well, I'll take temporary anyway. Some of it. I want something. I'll take a little temporary love anyway. I find you're justified in making this kind of argument. Bhakti comes full circle to us and says, there is love. There is movement. You can say, look, you're moving in relation to things that don't endure. Problem. Know thyself and sit. You might say, well, I want to move around. But no. Someone might reason, you are a unit of consciousness. Consciousness is everywhere. You don't need to go anywhere. You're already everywhere. Sarvagata could be interpreted in this way. You're everywhere. You don't need to go anywhere. But I want to go somewhere. What's the problem with being everywhere? There's nowhere to go. What's the problem with knowing everything? There's nothing to do now. I already know everything. So bhakti comes full circle. As action cancels out knowledge, knowledge cancels out action, love involves both knowledge and a very essential kind of knowledge. no extra baggage. When you love, you know what to do, and you know how to act. So Krishna has spoken about karma, action, and how to make that action somewhat wise, and how it will lead to the kind of wisdom that will retire action in relation to the world, but he wants to take us further to another kind of action, another kind of movement. Yes, one could conclude that if you're full, why move? But one could reason further, as the Gaudiyas do, if you're full, then you would be dancing. You would be moving in another way, celebrating your fullness, not moving because of a sense of emptiness, but moving out of fullness. So this is the movement in transcendence, which causes variegatedness, which is essential for loving. If ultimate reality is of a loving nature, there must be variety there. There must be movement there. There must be you, and there must be him. And here he wants to begin talking about himself. Having talked about yoga in this chapter, he says, what? Imam vibhasvate yoga proktavam ahamabhyayam. He says to Arjuna, this yoga that I'm talking about, I want to instill in you some faith in it. So let me tell you about its history. He says, long, long time ago. It's been around forever. Avyayam, it's imperishable. I spoke it millions of years ago to the sun god. So in a sense, Krishna seeks to strengthen Arjuna's faith in this trans-rational method of knowing that he's advocating, which is hard to do because we're now trying to go in an opposite way that we've been going for our whole life. We're going in a way of acquisition, and we think that by thinking we know, when thoughts are getting in the way of our knowing. And acquisition is like going up the down escalator. We're not getting anywhere. We're just going to debt. So we've got to move in a different way, and it's peculiar. And the inner world, the subjective world, although it's the homeland where the self resides, the inner landscape, it's somewhat new to us. We're humans now. We're coming out. We're coming out of the fold of material nature. We're feeling there's more to life than what meets the eye and the mind. And there is, and it's you. And it's you in consideration of your potential to love, ultimately. So in order to instill faith in Arjuna, in this yoga, which is a challenge, he says, let me tell you about it. It's been around forever. It's long. It's got a long history. This is not a new thing I'm telling you about here. It's been around. It's got track record, and so forth. So he emphasizes the antiquity of the teaching. Just like if I say to you, he went to an Ivy League school, what's the implication of the Ivy League? It's just been there forever. There's ivy growing on the walls. It's been there for, it's like, it can be relied upon. It's produced scholars. People get good jobs coming out of there, or something like that. Or you could go to Maharishi Mahesh University in Fairfield. Might be better, I don't know, but it's not an Ivy League school. So the idea is that, again, as we said earlier, also tenure and endurance lends credibility. So Krishna seeks to give more credibility by citing the kind of the history of the teaching. And in order to do that, he has to start talking about himself now. Suddenly he has to talk about himself. Now, I said the first 6 chapters are all about you. The second 6 chapters, Krishna starts speaking about himself. Some people get to the second 6 chapters and go, hold on. It was cool when he talked about me and I was amazing and everything. Now it's like, it sounds a little self-centered here, what he's saying about himself. But you should not misunderstand. In the Gita, Krishna does not speak about himself. No. Krishna speaks about bhakti. And just so happens, in order to speak about bhakti, he has to speak about himself. He's actually speaking about bhakti. But bhakti means, from the Sanskrit verbal root, bhaj, it means to It means like give and take. Is what it means. The give and take. The sharing. So there's a dualism. There's two there, right? So he has to talk about himself, humble as he is. He has to talk about himself because he's talking about bhakti, about love, about devotion. And he happens to be, as it turns out, the perfect object of love. How could the Absolute be otherwise? If we, as a unit of consciousness, in touch with psychic matter, create a whole world of emotions, feelings, fascinating as they are, then the unit of consciousness must have the potential to be a feeler, an experiencer, have an emotional life. And the fire, the source, then rightfully named Rasaraj, the king of rasa, the king of feeling, taste. That center to which, in relation to which, all the Atmas can find a loving, emotional life that is enduring, never-ending, and is not in competition with one another. It's said by Sanatana Guru that amongst Krishna's friends in Sakyarasa, every one of them thinks Krishna loves me the most, and every one of them is right. It's a different math here. We've entered into a different realm. Krishna's introducing that here. This brief section in the 4th chapter about the virtues of knowledge. A brief section on Avatar Tattva. So he says two things. He says, I'll be talking about this yoga, let me tell you, it has a long history. I'm involved in the history. I'm teaching it to you. I taught it a long time ago. And then he says, Evam paramparam praptam imam raja shayovidu sakalina mahata yoganashtaparam tapa. He says, this knowledge, he introduces the idea how this knowledge comes to the world through a chain of succession of teachers. Parampara means one after another. One after another. That's the literal meaning. Why is it one after another? It says Sakalena Mahata Yoganashta Parantapa. He says that by the influence of time, sometimes the teaching becomes covered. What is time? Later in the Gita he says, time I am. In one sense, Krishna is saying, I cover my own teaching so that I may shed light on one great teacher or another great teacher at different times who are my devotees, who you should learn from about me. He's introducing himself here, and he introduces at the same time the Guru Parampara, which is the way of knowing him through a succession of saints who hand down the knowledge, and in a particular way they hand down the knowledge. They hand down the knowledge in such a way that it's enhanced. Nowadays some people think, if you say only as much as the previous teacher, nothing more, then you're okay. Anything more, you're suspect. It should be just the opposite. To say more about the same, a subject in which everyone is a student in relation to forever, even the teachers, the greatest teachers, such as its nature. It's said in Bhagavatam, the sequel, the theological sequel to the Gita in the 2nd canto, that Krishna does not know the limits of his own Swarup Shakti, his own Yoga Maya. He doesn't know the limits. Later in the Bhagavatam, the Shruti glorify him. It's very beautiful. Krishna says, he glorifies the Upanishads personified. You are the knowers of everything. They say, how can we know everything? Even you don't know everything about yourself. So Krishna says, so you mean I'm not omniscient? They say, so they're very smart, so they reply, no, you don't know your own limits, so I'm not a mission. I said, no, you don't have any limits. Your Swarupa Shakti is always in newer ways, manifesting things to please you, to satisfy you. That's what it does. So the knowledge about Krishna, what to speak of the knowledge about Krishna, the knowledge about the world is unlimited. There are unlimited atmas, unlimited worlds, even in the material world. It's not like you go so far in space and time. That's the end of the material world. So there's always new things to find out about the world. And the world's always changing. So in that sense, also, you can say that the laws are changing even. You find out new laws and you find it's different. It's quite possible someone's pulling strings, changing the laws. So there are ways to look at it. But the knowledge about the material world is unlimited. We speak about the knowledge about Krishna. Krishna himself does not know the limits of his own potency, because it has no limits. So the teacher in the parampara, one after another, really is unfolding it more like a flower. If you shine the sun on it, it opens and opens. It's just an ever unfolding lotus. And time and circumstance change, so the need to present it in a different light, and so on. So in light of current thought, at the time, Vishwanath Chakravarti makes a nice statement. In the most used verse amongst the Goswamis to define the Guru, Tasmad Guru Papadeta Jignasu Shayutama. Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmani Pashamashra. Shabde Parecha Nishnatam. Nishnatam means he or she, the Guru, knows the Shabda, Pare, from a theistic perspective, the sound current, the Upanishad, the revelation, Nishnatam, inside out and backwards. And Chakravarti makes a comment. Not only does the Guru, he or she, have the knowledge, comprehensive knowledge of the sound, in terms of its essence, but other books too, he says. Must know other books too. It needs to know what the currents of thought are, so that he may present the teaching in light of that, and so forth. So, at any rate, Krishna has introduced this parampara here because he's introduced himself, and just by way of talking about the antiquity of the teaching, as I say, to give faith to Arjuna, and talking about himself, he talks about the way in which he's known, the channel through which he's known in the world, through a succession of teachers. He's talking about his devotees, in other words. When the teaching becomes obscured by the influence of time, he is time. How can material nature obscure the transcendental teachings? If we look at time as a manifestation of Krishna, he says his hand is involved. Why does he obscure it? That he may shed light, which is his greatest pleasure, on one of his devotees, and put them in a position to illumine others. That is Guru Parampara. We have to look to see that. Where is the Guru Parampara? Where is it going? How is it coming? It's here, it's there. It goes like this. Not necessarily in a straight line. Where the teaching is prominently manifest. I'm there. You cannot say, Krishna, you said you're over here. I went over there. Now you're saying you're over there. Which is it? You just go there. We should be essence seekers. Try to gravitate. For a real substantial association. That's where Krishna will be found. But Arjuna, he has that. Krishna says, so, my teaching comes through the succession, and it tells us about this. It's what is it? Excuse me. Yes, Yoga Protipurana. Nice verse, he says. And I'm telling it to you. I told it to the Sun God. It comes through this succession of teachers, and I'm here today telling you, Arjuna, Bhaktosi Vesakachiti Rahasyam. I'm telling you this rahasyam, the secret knowledge. Rahasyam is a word used in Bhagavatam, in the Chatur Shloka, the essential slokas of the Bhagavatam. It speaks about praying. A very Gaudiya word. Every other Vaishnava Sampradaya speaks about the goal in terms of mukti, one kind of mukti or another. Praying is a very Gaudiya word. Praying prayojan. The goal is praying. Rahasyam, what's implied here in this entire verse is that although he's been speaking about karma yoga, this chapter he's going to go on to speak about jnana yoga. From the very beginning when he spoke about yoga, he said, Neha Bikramanashvasti Pratyavayana Vidite Svalpamapi Asadharmasya Trayate Matobhaya. This is bhakti. That yoga in which any effort made is something gained and never lost. In karma yoga, jnana yoga, these are the influences of rajas and sattva. So you can't have a permanent result. Ultimately, underneath here he's speaking about bhakti. And he says, Arjuna, I'm going to tell you about this yoga. It's going to take a couple more chapters, but it's really about bhakti, and this is a secret kind of yoga, the secret of the Gita. I'm going to tell you because you are my Sakha, my friend, and my devotee. Arjuna, of course, is bright, and so he likes what he heard, but he brings up a question. He says, well, wait a minute here. You said that you spoke this to the Sun God, but, you're my friend, as you just said. We grew up together, so, how did you do that? Thousands of years ago, he spoke to the Sun God. I know people take other births and stuff like that, but they don't remember the previous ones. And humans don't instruct gods. You're a human, right, Krishna? We're friends. And so he gives our Krishna the chance. You see, it's very beautiful. Arjuna gives Krishna the chance to kind of toot his own horn. He has to now speak about himself. The devotee is forcing him by the question to speak about his omniscience. Oh, okay, I'm omniscient. Okay? Can we get back to, being friends? Again, this omniscience is a problem. Omnipresence is a problem. Leela is the solution. If you know everything and you're already everywhere, there's nowhere to go and there's nothing to do, so when you're bored, you play. There's Leela. There's a solution to beyond omniscience, beyond omnipresence, a more comprehensive existence than omnipresence. And how is it depicted? In a rural village, a small place. It is a more profound existence and a more profound knowing than omnipresence and omniscience. Why? Because of the measure of affection that the place is about. The movement from the physical world to the mental world. So many possibilities. Physical world, there's limited possibilities compared to the mental world. My Guru used to say, well, in this world you can have a gold, you can see gold and you can see a mountain, but don't think you're going to find a gold mountain. But in your mind you can have a gold mountain with a diamond on top. So as you move from the material hierarchy from the physical to the mental, it becomes more spacious, more possibilities. It also becomes more affectionate, because affections are in the mental world. Feelings are in the mental world. Feelings are not in the physical world. They're all in the mental world. Right? If you don't pay attention, you might not feel it. From mind to intellect, it becomes bigger. Okay, if you love and feel based on your mental emotional life, it's one thing, but if you've thought it out, you can have a more meaningful emotional relationship with someone, rather than just one based on infatuation. You thought it out and realized there are going to be ups and downs, but I'm going to ride the waves. So, anyway, from physical to mental to intellectual to consciousness. Oh, how big is that? Can't even say. We could measure it a little bit previously in the other realms. Consciousness. We've entered into the land of the measurer himself. How do you measure a ruler? How can ruler? So we are the measurer. So we've entered into the land of the immeasurable. And the self is like Brahman. All-pervading consciousness. How big is that? How spacious is that? How much is that entire an end to all the entire world of exploitation, all the taking, it's ended. Peace, shanti, shanti, shanti. Complete peace. And, as I said earlier, not taking is part of love. So there's more feeling there, in that sense. Because the taker is not a feeler. You understand? When we're just taking from people, we're seeing people as objects. We're not really feeling them for what they are. So you're kind of cold-hearted. So when we move to not taking, enter into Brahman, there's more feeling, in a sense, as I'm speaking about, than the whole world for feelings, material world. And then we move from this like immeasurable to what seems to be measurable. Vaikuntha, a world, and Brahman has a form, four-handed, no doubt, so adhoc, such a extraordinary, transcendental, different. But it seems to have got smaller. We moved away from names and forms, nam and rupa of the world. They're just creations of the mind. Got beyond them. Now we're talking about form again. But we're talking about the form of affection. Love has a shape. How can it be taken advantage of? Art requires a canvas. From the abstract to the concrete. So love has a shape. Reverential love has the shape, for example, of Narayan and his innumerable avatars. Many, many faces, innumerable faces of God. And from the big Vaikuntha, we go to the very, very small Vrindavan. Just a village. It's like it's not even think about it, Vaikuntha. That's but as it's depicted in this way, small, rural, unknowing, village people. But what's happening in all this is we're moving, as I said, in terms of affection. The more affection, the bigger the place is. The more affection, the more profound the existence is, and the more profound the knowing is, even when where you are and what you know seems unimportant when you love. If you love someone, you can live under a rock with them. And the whole world can burn up. It doesn't matter. And as living under a rock would seem an undesirable existence, if it happens to be a loving one, there's no place bigger than that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in a room, 8 by 8, something like a stone room, no windows. What kind of love came out of that? He melted in the room. What was going on in his heart? The Gambhira, it means deep, the deep insights he had about Krishna Lila that drove him to his madness. And in the pursuit of his madness, a method came out by which we can follow and enter into that same madness. It's wise love, but it's mad. Krishna says here, I come into the world as I am. I'm human-like. Arjuna's saying, well, wait a minute. Yeah, we're friends. We were together. You said you were previously, you were existing previously. You taught the sun god. So again, he's giving opportunity for Krishna to reveal some Aishvarya so that people won't misunderstand his Madhurya. The Bhagavatam is a beautiful text in which the author walks a tightrope between what we call Aishvarya or majesty and Madhurya, sweetness. There cannot be sweetness without majesty. So he's God, but he's human-like, playing back and forth between. So here we find same thing. Arjuna says, Krishna says, "You're my friend. I love you. I'm going to tell you the secret." Arjuna says, "Well, hold up. People might misunderstand. You said you're my friend. We're buddies, and so forth. But you said he spoke this teaching millions of years ago. How could you do both?" So he gives an opportunity for Krishna to reveal some Aishvarya, knowledge of his omniscience, which is like a secondary thing. The main thing is we're friends. Let me share a secret with you. But, there's some background to that. The reason in one sense, I'm worthy of being the friend of everyone is just because of who I am. I just happen to be the center. So he answers Arjuna's question that how could you have been, we're friends, how could you have been living thousands of years ago and spoke to the sun god? So Krishna speaks then about his omniscience, about his eternality. The tattva that underlies his avatara, his crossing tata from up to down, is manifesting in the world, as if one of us, manifesting within our frame of reference, to take us beyond it, and enable us to realize our potential to love. So some tattva underlying the appearance of Krishna, the avatar. Here he's talking about himself. He's the avatari, appearing as the avatar. The avatars are basically different emotional moments in the life of the Godhead personified. You just imagine if you had a feeling and then you could make it turn into a person, that feeling. The players in the Leela, they're like the avatars, or the Shakti Tattva, manifestations of Radha, like one feeling of Radha, or one feeling of Krishna. Incomplete persons, it would seem, from our human perspective, but even a partial emotional reality of Krishna personified is more real than our whole emotional life, the personhood, materially speaking, put together. So, many avatars. He's the avatari, he says. I come under my own Shakti. I come under the influence of Bhakti, my own Shakti, my Swarup Shakti. I move under that. The more the Shakti is manifest, the more the God is moving. In Brahman, the Shakti is not manifest. God is still. Bhakti is creating the variety. Bhakti is making the Godhead move. Bhakti is doing the impossible, because how can he who is everywhere move? The answer is by Bhakti. By Bhakti he can move, even though he's everywhere. That is called Leela. And Krishna says here that I've come here. This is my Leela. I come under the influence of Bhakti. I don't come under any, that's an important point. I don't come under any other influence. I don't come here like ordinary people come under the influence of karma. I come under the influence of Bhakti. And in the world, these two forces are moving. The force of karma and the force of Bhakti. It's always in the world. If we're lucky, what does that mean? If you get the right association, you can come under the influence of Bhakti. You get the bija of Bhakti, the seed of Bhakti, and change the course of your life. So again, he's introduced the parampara here. He's talking about bhakti, he's talking about himself. He's talking about in a very nutshell way, giving avatar tattva, how to love him. And how he comes to the world out of love only. He doesn't even come directly for the suffering of others, which he has no experience of, and thus lacks the potential, full potential to be empathetic. If you have experience of the suffering of another, it certainly enhances your capacity to be empathetic towards them. If you have no experience of another person, if someone says, I'm suffering from depression, and you don't have no experience of it, you say, well, hey, tell you what, no reason to feel bad. Sun's out. Sun's out, The guy looks at you like, the sun's not out. Can't you see that? The sun's not out. But you have any experience of it, it's difficult to be empathetic. Krishna has no experience of material suffering. Thank God, he doesn't. Because experience of material suffering results from ignorance, not from knowing. It comes from ignorance, from attachment. That's ignorance. That gives rise to material suffering. We're glad that God doesn't have experience of that. Therefore, he can be God. And be a part of the solution, and the whole solution, rather than the problem. So, of course, he knows about the suffering of others. Just like we know, well, we kind of know that if a bug dies on our windshield on the way to the temple, I guess it must have hurt. Anyway, keep driving. It's not like we're going to get all up in arms about it. Bugs are dying on windshields everywhere. We know it, but it's kind of removed from our experience in a sense. Krishna knows the mechanics of the suffering. He teaches how to end it. But his important thing here is he says, I'm giving this to you because you are my devotee. Krishna only interacts with his devotees. We can only have access to him through bhakti. Bhakti is his own Swarup Shakti. Always stays within the orbit of his Swarup Shakti. He never comes within the orbit of the Maya Shakti. And the Jiva Shakti does not have the power unto itself even to dispel the Maya Shakti, or to speak of overwhelming Krishna, like Bhakti can. But if Bhakti comes into our life, very easily the cloud of smoke of Maya will be dispelled, and we will have the capacity to overwhelm Krishna, and that's what Krishna means. God overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. And at the let's go. Krishna's driving. This is bhakti. It's turning Brahman, in a sense. The love of the devotee corresponds. The form of God is relative to the love of the devotee. This is Veda. The love of the devotee and Bhagavan, they're one. Different faces of God. What's behind it? Different kinds of love. As I often say, you may not believe in God, that's fine, but it's hard not to believe in the love of God. We see it. And we define it in a broad sense by, in terms of its being ego-effacing. It involves not taking. There are saints in all traditions, right? They have historically had the greatest impact on the world and will continue to have it. They stand like lighthouses on the shore to us, bobbing in the ocean of material existence. And they say, there is land. There is land. I'm standing on it. It's here. Go this way. And there's no meaning to love of God then, if there's no God. You can say, I don't believe in God, I haven't seen him. Oh, say here, look at this person. Look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You don't believe in Krishna, the myth of Krishna? What about the historical empirical reality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's simply uttering the name of Krishna. There's no person in human history, in the religious history of the world, that personifies more the ecstasy of love of God than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's an objective statement. What the Goswamis did, the writers and original founders of the lineage, they located the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the scriptural map and said, this is what this is. This is what this is. It's a very extraordinary thing. It's Krishna in existential crisis, trying to figure out himself. And what is it in him that makes Radha the way she is, that drives him mad? He thinks, everybody worships me, I'm God, but people don't realize it, but I'm attracted to her. Am I God? Maybe I'm not God. And so he thinks about it deeply, and he realizes, oh, there's something in me that she sees that makes her like this. So I am God. But what it is in me that makes her the way she is, that makes her attractive, I can only know that from her vantage point. And I long to do that. Everyone longs to know themselves. What is it about me that makes you like that? He wants to taste their experience. This was the ecstasy of Chaitanya. He located Krishna on it. This is very profound. You can cite different verses. This verse predicts Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They can be interpreted in so many different ways. But what the Goswamis really did was they plumbed the depths of the psychology of God, of Bhagavan, Krishna. They really understand Krishna, the concept of Krishna. There has to be a Radha. All these things have to happen. There has to be a Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you understand Krishna properly, there has to be a Gaura Lila. And that Gaura Lila is mentioned in this section. Ejatamam padante tam sataiva vajami. This verse is coming in this, just after this section of Avatar Tattva, connected to it. As they surrender unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. We say, okay, let's take this formula. Krishna says, as people surrender to me, I reciprocate in kind. Okay, let's play it out. Where was it played out fullest? Those milk maidens of Vrindavan, they played it out. And what happened? He said, I give up. I cannot reciprocate in kind. Your love itself is your own reward. If I was to do anything to repay you, I would propose this. Once in every day of Brahma, I will appear as a sadhu. And I'll teach about you gopis, to everybody, and make devotees for you. This is Gaudiya Vaishnava. Krishna Avatar. He comes to the world for his devotees. Which devotees? He says, Arjuna's asked him, well, you're omniscient, so you're eternal. Okay, you've explained that. So why do you come to the world then? What would be the need? So there's a need. Believe me, there's a need. He says, Yada yada ki bhavisa, yada yada ki dharmasa, Brahmar bhavati bharata, vitanama dharmasam, tadatmanam sejamyaham. And what? Paritranaya sadhanam, vinashaya duskritam, dharmasam statanata, sambhavam duge. I have a need to come. What is the need? Paritranaya sadhanam. There are some devotees in this world, and they can no longer live without me. Well, I come. I manifest my lila, and they take birth in that lila. And they get an association of my entourage. And they qualify, therefore, by that they become qualified to enter into my lila and never return. I come for them, for those devotees who are weeping in separation. I'm controlled by them. I cannot remain separate from them. I come to dissipate the darkness of the dark night of their soul. And while I'm here, as a byproduct of that, I establish dharma and other things also. That's as an aside. I have compassion, he says, for my devotees, and they are so deserving of it. And they themselves are abodes of compassion, and they have experienced of material suffering, so they are my kripa shakti. Vancha kalpa taruvyascha kripa sindhuvyeva cha patitam pavanam vaishnavim. Go to them, and then you will find me. We'll talk about that. How Krishna is found in the context of bhakti. We move from these rather heady topics, tattva, and rather long discussion, forgive me, to, as the night goes on, we'll change the pace and we'll turn to the lila. We'll just throw out the tattva, for example. The sweetness of it all, from philosophy to the feeling, something like that. So, what's the time?
8.
Oh, it's 8. Okay, so we'll stop now, and 8, 9, 10, 11. So when should we regather? 45 minutes? Half hour? It's 8, so 9. Okay, so we'll meet at 8:45. We can change japa. So we'll 9. Oh, we can be a quarter to 9. Okay, japa, kirtan. I think there's a fire. Kind of they started outside, so you can sit around the fire, get to know one another, and think about these weird ideas you've run through. And we'll gather again, and then we'll talk for a shorter period of time, like half an hour with the break, half an hour, something like that, until we reach the midnight kirtan. Shri Krishna Janmāṣṭamī ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.